If you've been podcasting for a while, you know that sometimes it can be challenging to come up with new ideas and keep your audience engaged. Hi, I'm Bridget from Riverside, and in this video, we'll be discussing some tips for pivoting your podcast and exploring new formats and mediums so that you can keep your podcast content fresh and engaging. It's important to know that pivoting your podcast doesn't mean completely changing your podcast, but it does mean exploring new formats and mediums to keep things interesting. A podcast format refers to the style or structure of a podcast episode or series. This could include the length of the episodes, the topics covered, the type of content, and the frequency of new episodes. A medium refers to the format in which the podcast is distributed or consumed. So this could include video, live streams, or other digital formats like blog posts and newsletters. So let's talk about some tips for pivoting your podcast. Tip number 1 is to try a mini-series. Instead of doing your usual weekly or bi-weekly show, consider doing a mini-series on a specific topic. If you have a content creation podcast, you could do a mini-series on how to create different types of content, like videos, blog posts, or social media posts. Each episode could focus on a different type of content and provide tips and tricks for creating it effectively. This allows you to go in depth on a topic that your audience is interested in, and it can attract new listeners who are searching for content on that topic. Tip number 2 is to explore serialized storytelling. Serialized storytelling is a great way to keep your audience coming back for new episodes. You can tell a story over the course of several episodes, keeping your listeners engaged and wanting to know what happens next. Here are 3 best practices for serialized storytelling. Number 1 is to plan ahead. Decide on the story arc and the overall structure of your series before you start recording. This will help you create a cohesive and engaging story. Number 2 is to release consistently. So to keep your audience engaged, it's important to release each episode of your series on a consistent schedule. This could be weekly, bi-weekly, or even daily, depending on the length and complexity of your story. Number 3 is to keep the stakes high. To keep your listeners interested in your story, it's important to keep the stakes high and create tension and conflict throughout the series. For some storytelling tips, head to the video linked above. Tip number 3 is to experiment with interactive and live podcasts. Interactive podcasts are a newer format that allows your audience to participate in the show. Here are 2 easy ways that you can do this. 1 is to host a live podcast on Riverside. Simply distribute your studio's audience link, and viewers will be able to watch the recording of an episode live and ask questions or leave comments through the live chat. They can even call in to be part of the show. You can also use Spotify for Podcasters' interactive features, like adding polls and questions to your individual episodes, and accepting listener voicemails that you can then use directly in your show. By making your show more interactive and directly engaging with your audience, it's a great way to build a community around your podcast and keep your listeners engaged. Now let's talk about expanding your content into new mediums. So tip number 4 is to consider adding video. Video is a great way to expand your audience and reach new viewers. You can film the recording process of your podcast and upload it to YouTube or other video platforms to reach more people. You can also create complementary video content to be released alongside an episode. For instance, if your podcast is about cooking, you could create a separate video series that shows step-by-step tutorials of recipes or interviews with chefs. This can attract a new audience who prefer video content and also give your existing audience another way to engage with your brand. If you want some more ideas on how to create complementary video content for your podcast, head to the video linked above. Tip number 6 is to host live Q&A sessions. Host these on social media after you release an episode. This is a great way to get direct feedback from your audience and engage with them in real time. You can answer their questions, address any concerns or comments, and even have them make suggestions for future episodes. Try to do this a couple days after the episode is released to give listeners a chance to actually listen to the episode ahead of time. This is a great way to build your relationship with your listeners and show them that you value their input. Tip number 7 is to generate blog posts. Using your podcast episode transcription to create blog posts is a great way to reach a new audience and provide your existing audience with additional content. You can highlight key points from your podcast episodes or expand on topics that you covered briefly in the show. Creating a blog post from your podcast episodes is now easier than ever with Riverside's transcription tool and AI. Head to the video linked above to learn the different ways that you can repurpose your podcast transcription. By repurposing your podcast content into blog posts, you can attract more traffic to your website and increase your online visibility. With these tips, you have many options for pivoting your podcast and exploring new formats and mediums. Whether you try a mini-series, experiment with interactive podcasts, or expand your podcast content into video or blog posts, There are many ways to keep your podcast fresh and engaging. If you liked this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. And before you go, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so you never miss another video from Riverside. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in our next one.